Hello and welcome to week 3. This video is just gonna go over tips and tricks, and what I'll do is I'll do a little run through of pivots and history and a bunch of game engine stuff that's important when creating. Um, and we are just going to go ahead and get into that. One thing I want to do beforehand though is just go over here. What we have is just a week 3 lecture 1 document that you should take a look at. Obviously, this video here that I'm about to do, the Maya tips and tricks. You want to go to modeling demo as well, the nerves modeling. We have some extras here that are extremely important to look over, one of which is the Jesse O'Brien, former professor of this course, and he also teaches this course to different sections currently, and he just explains this Dota 2 web application that's quite interesting, a web page I should say, where you can download different models and actually use them. And then there's just an additional information module that or video that he explains particular additions that have to do with just becoming a game artist, things like that I want you to look over as well. So take your time with those. And right now we're just going to get into this. One thing about Maya is you can do a lot of undoing. One of the beautiful things is, and something that I think everybody should take advantage of is the undo preferences. And if we go to preferences and we we go and take a look at the undo section, you'll see that it defaults at 50. You can feel free to bring that up to about 100. Um, I know some artists, such as Jesse O'Brien, likes to go up to 250. That's also a great number. You do not want to go to infinite. You could potentially do that, except the problem with that is it'll cause some problems with crashing, because it essentially just remembers and puts it into the cache or what have you, and stores the information for each thing that you do. So eventually, you're going to have some problems down the line if this number is infinite, especially if it's infinite. I just keep it at 100 personally. We'll just hit the save button. Another aspect that 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 I think is great is the edit pivot. And if you ever needed to center the pivot, let's say the pivot is off center, you can go ahead and go to modify center pivot, and it'll center that pivot right where you need it to be. Um, if you wanted to manually move the pivot, this is another option that's beautiful and adjustable. And you can get there through the hotkey D. And essentially what you'll be able to do is you can move the pivot wherever it needs to be. You can rotate it, etc. Um, Another thing that you can do is you can snap it to where you would like as well. Such as placing it on the base of the sphere. And see how there's a command here that says align. Well, if you just click on wherever you want, it'll go to that spot. It will align itself to the spot that you click. That could be a face, that could be an edge, that could be a vert. That's a beautiful little quick feature there. Now, one thing to note is that we don't always want it to align like this. And so if we go ahead and we just center that pivot, and also obviously we would have to align it appropriately. A quick way to do that would just be that, and then do modify center pivot. If we don't want it to align to the actual normals or the face itself. You know, see how it sticks out just at the right angle to the face. Um, we can snap it like this, but we can also allow it to stay in this alignment and snap it to, let's say, a vert like this by holding down the V command. And you just basically, whoops, basically you just move it, press V, and while you're holding V, it'll snap to a vertices. In this case, looks like it's there we go. Snap to point, you hold down V. Now, you could accidentally, which is what might have happened there, snap it to the edge as well. If you hold down C, for example. We're holding down C. We can definitely move that to an edge. And see how it's just kind of along the line there. So that's a useful tool. Now, getting out of it, you just press D again. And notice how it's not in alignment with the normal or what have you. So that's a useful trick there. And there are also other things as well. Let's say you want to snap that to the grid, and you just want to snap the whoops the actual pivot to the grid. Well, you can do that. Hold down X, and it'll snap right to the grid. And then if you get out of that, you'll be able to move your object from that point. So it's just a useful tool for, you know, when it needs to happen. When you need that thing to be centered in a very particular location, not necessarily centered with the object. The other thing that would be good to go over is you know, the fact that you can also do this to objects too. So let's do modify, center pivot. Now that we're centered, we can go ahead and start to move this object to the grid. So let's hold down X, boom, all of a sudden it's in the grid and it's not going anywhere else but the grid. If I don't hold it down, now it's free floating. Let's say I wanted another object in here, and I want to snap this guy to the corner of this cube here, but I don't want it to intersect, so to speak. So what we'll do is we'll go D, and we could do either C, X, or V toggle for snapping here. So you can, and I don't use these up here because it's a lot of time wasted to have to click that. So that's why I use the XCV commands. It's just V being for points or vertex, C being for edge, X being for grid. So if I go ahead and just move this guy, it's now on a vertex. Good there. All right, and now we can press D again. We're back in the object mode, and we can snap it right to that corner. And it did intersect, but you get the point. It's a beautiful little tool for very specific actions that need to happen when the pivot is maybe in that way, or you want to move it in a different way. And also obviously for locking in on particular points of two disparate objects before merging or combining, etc. one other feature that that I want to go over is the history. Let's say I'm, going along, moving things around, just on the sphere here, just making this disgusting form. Maybe I'm extruding things as well, and just making this crazy thing, right? Well, as you can tell, there are a couple things that weren't here before. Extrude face, poly tweak, polysphere 1, or extrude face 2. Um, these are the history of this object. And it's the amount of manipulation I've done thus far. Well, and this kind of harkens back to the undo commands. This is basically what undo is saving. It's the history of the mesh. Let's say I need to export this for a game. Well, you don't want all that history, nor do you need all that history in the Unity game engine or Unreal, wherever you're exporting this to. You don't need all that history. It's just not necessary. So what we'll do is simply delete that history before we export it. And it's good practice as well. And it's something that I'll be looking for you guys to do regularly in the moving forward in regards to submissions and stuff. I'm gonna want to see that you've deleted the history upon completion of what you're doing. Um, and so one way to do that is to go to delete all by type or delete by type. Delete all by type, you can select all sorts of different parts of this. In this case, I would just say delete all history. And that way you have a nice clean slate here, and we can go from there. So these inputs that were here, you can obviously tweak that history. So let's say we just do another extrusion here, right? Okay. Let's just reverse the UVs on this guy. Go ahead and ignore that. And actually, what we'll do is we'll just back up and I'll show you how to fix it. So let's say that we accidentally reverse our UVs or normals or what have you. Reverse the normals. You just click that. You go mesh display, reverse, done. Back to normal. And that actually gave us some history. So as you can see, I did that one extrusion. You can actually edit these inputs that you had in the history. I never use it. Um, it's just not very useful. It's kind of one of those features in Maya that it's nice that it's there, but I never have had to use it. Um, and eventually, if you let that history build up, what'll happen is you'll end up with a corrupt file because it's just saving, saving, and saving, and saving, and storing all that data for this file, and your file is going to be bigger. The mesh has potential to be corrupted because of that. So each time that you open that file up, all that history needs to calculate, and what's going to happen is eventually it's just literally going to just explode your mesh. When I was first learning Maya, I had times where I would open my project file, all of a sudden it was just this big scrambled, jagged edged, mess. Very confused about what just happened. Well, it's because I wasn't deleting the history. And you definitely don't want that to be in a game, first and foremost. And you also don't want that to be going on when you're making something in Maya, because you're just corrupting the file. It's going to cause Maya to crash, and it's going to cause a bigger file, which is bad for optimization in games. And also, your skinning, your animation for models, your rigging, all that's going to be messed up as well. So you always want to delete that history intermittently throughout your process of creation. Usually, I would wait, maybe at the end of the day when you know things are solid. That's when I would delete my history. That's when I delete my history. Or I'll delete my history throughout the day just a couple times, 2 or 3 times, but only when I'm very positive that I'm not gonna be needing to do any undos, if you will. Um, and so I'll be looking for that moving forward in your projects. And once again, you can go to edit, uh, delete by type. You can do history, or you can do delete all by type, and you can go ahead and delete what you wish. In this case, we would do edit delete all by type history. Um, so keep that in mind, and I just don't want you to lose points uh, moving forward. So make sure that you do that on your projects, because they will be in the rubric, and you'll see it when you look at the rubrics. Another thing, when exporting to a game engine, you want to freeze your transformations. What does that mean? That means everything is zeroed out. See how the channel here is at 0.302 and et cetera, et cetera. We don't want that when we're going into a game, because it's going to confuse the actual game, as especially if you have some animations and whatnot going on, or that you've done in game in the editor, because it's not going to be zeroed out. There would be no proper origin for the piece to work from. And that could be problematic in multiple ways. But what you do to do that is you would go, you don't press 000, right? First off, before you go ahead and freeze transform it, what you want to do is you want to zero it out just like that. So you would just go click on that, hover, hold, go down, 0. And then you want to go up and just raise it up and just allow it to sit right on that edge of the origin. And you can refine that here. Especially if it's like a character that needs to sit on that origin. Once you have that in place, you can go ahead and freeze transform it. Because see, now that I had to raise it up, now it's 6 here. But this is good practice for going into games. You want it to sit on that grid. So we'll go ahead and we'll go to modify, freeze transformations. And that's going to zero it out. No matter where you put your object, it can be zeroed out. So let's see how this one's off from 0, 0, 0. You can still freeze transform it. Still going to go to 0. So always do that before exporting to games. And please do that moving forward with your projects, yeah, referring to the rubric. So that's going to be another requirement. And, you know, when it comes to assets, game objects need to be low poly. And it depends what games or game systems or consoles or whatever you're making it for. That's going to determine how low poly it needs to be. If it's a mobile game, extra low poly. If it's PlayStation 4, obviously it doesn't have to be as extreme of a low poly, but it should still be low poly. And uh, there's always limits in the creation of games for the meshes, for the objects that are within them. no matter what the hardware. And one thing that I do to keep track of mine, and I'm sure you've noticed thus far, is I have this little heads-up display right here. And what that does is it counts the faces. It counts the tries. It counts the edges and the verts. And the beautiful thing about this is, pressing F on the keyboard to zoom in here. Let's say just select a couple of these. All right. It says right there, this is what I've selected, 16 verts. Now if we go to edges, 88 edges, because I selected through the object too. And the same with faces, tries, UVs, etc. Now if you just go like that, you'll just see that all these are 0 because these only show you what's selected. This shows you total. So if I have that selected as an object, you can see that one object is what's displayed here. Likewise here. More specific selections displayed here. Oops, display right there. And this has just been a good tool for me because I tend to lose track, and it's going to show you, everything that you need so that you can have a reference point and you don't go overboard with what's needed, or it's always useful when building geometry to go from the lowest, to the highest, meaning the highest low, not the highest poly count possible, but the highest low poly count. So, or that goal or limit that you want. So let's say this has 500. The limitation, you're given a project, you have to make a sphere that, it's 500 faces, right, or something like that. And it has other stuff coming off of it. Let's say, just say this object has to only be 500 faces. Well, don't start with 500. Start with something much lower, and make the edge flow as needed, and always refer back to this so you can kind of make sure you don't go over that 500 limit that was set. The limit is your highest, and the lowest is the absolute lowest amount that you need just to get the thing started. Importing and exporting. If I were, and this is a great point just for, just to kind of harken on games and stuff as well, on game production, how to export to games. If I were to just select the one thing, I can go to File, Export Selection, Options box, and if it's for games, you export in FBX always. If it's for just another Maya file, Maya binary, and that's what we're going to do this time around. And it's going to tell me, or it's going to have me select where I want it. In this case, I'm going to go to D, RIT class, and we're just going to name this tiny box. Export selection. Continue. Okay. And now what I can do is just that one selection was exported. So now I can import that object into anything. Let's say I wanted to get it back in here. Go in here, go to tiny box, import. There he is, right there. Exactly where I left him. Little tiny box. Good job, buddy. So he's good to go. He knows where he's got to be. He knows where his house is. Happy pappy, tiny box. And like I said, FBX every time for games. And you want to make sure that particular features are applied before exporting. Um, it's it's fine to do a default if we're going to export this to a game, for example. I mean, you can do export to Unity, or you can, export this way, and we can go FBX export. You want to look at these options every time and just make sure, obviously, that these things are unchecked, and that's something we'll go over further. For now, default's just fine. Another thing that you might have noticed about my setup is I have this here, and this is the outliner. You can get there by going to Windows, General, it should be in General Editors. Let's see here. Oh, no, see, just right there, because it's one of the more important ones. The the beauty of an outliner is you can go ahead and come in here, double click on that, and I can change that name so I can recognize it better. We have a lot of stuff here, or we have 3 things here, not that much, but uh, let's say we had a bunch of other stuff. This would help us to go about organizing things, because I didn't know if this cube was different than this cube, etc. This is a poly. These are polys, these are cameras, and these are kind of environmental light sets and object sets. Uh, and the other thing is, if you hold down the middle mouse button, you can bring things together and separate them. This is kind of a way to group things. You can middle mouse button, hold, and then you can just kind of move things around in this kind of hierarchy, if you will. And that should help you to kind of stay organized a little bit more while you're working. And you go through the icons, just kind of, like, let's say another icon, like these icons here. If I go Control G and group them, this is a grouped icon. So that's just one extra icon just to be aware of. Naming. Names are good. Make sure you're good about naming conventions, and you can change the name elsewhere too. Like if you go into the attribute layer, or this, you can change it right in here, and you can change it in other areas as well. Like, obviously, in this case, you would change it here to get that name to show up there like that. Like, I could name this Gucci Boy, or Flamingo Laughter. Boom, that. But then, and if I name it that, I don't know what the heck. Well, maybe this is like the visualization of flamingo laughter, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing to note, I like to kind of keep things tight here, and I'll delete my history, because look at all these inputs. I don't need it. I don't need all that history. In the channel box and layer editor, which can be accessed here, I keep mine up here, just so that, because I'm always tweaking the translations and all that. Another thing to note is layers. Layers are a lovely thing. We go ahead and make a new layer. what I just did there is I just pressed this button here, and that's just gonna add a new layer. It's not going to assign anything to that layer. Let's say I have this box selected and I hit this one. All of a sudden that box, which all of a sudden that box is on that layer. So that's a quick and easy one. If you just do it like this and you select that one, for example, because I had clicked this button originally for the first layer, we can still add selected objects. If we just right click here, add select objects. Now, one thing to note is there are other layers to this layering organization. You can color these. So let's say this is the flamingo laughter. Well, we're going to save that. And wait, because it's, yeah, that's not going to do it. So it has to just be laughters. And that'll be fine. Another thing is you can just pick a different color for the cube that we have over here. In this layer, this could be cubes. So original. And then we can go ahead and we can add that object to it. So now all of a sudden all of these objects are disappearing when we do the visibility. Another thing to note is we have this templated version. Templated is essentially just, it's going to wireframe out the object, but also not allow you to select it or interact with it, which is good for certain things. I use the reference, which is R. Reference is perfectly fine. It keeps the shaders on, but doesn't allow you to interact with it well, which is good for when you have something in front. Like let's say I want to select this cube, but I don't want to select the sphere, but don't want to select everything else. Well, look at that. It's beautiful. And these obviously visibility again. So use layers as much as you can. I mean, it's kind of fun as well. And obviously you can name them. Whatever is easy for you to remember for the project or for your team to remember for the project. You know, they help you keep track of things in a layered fashion, and that is most important. One quick note is, you know, because we had talked at the last meeting on Friday, and in general, I guess I'll just bring this up in general, is that, you know, people who program and artists, you know, they don't have to be separate. You can have one human that is a programmer and an artist. Um, and, you know, I think many of you are either programmers or artists, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could be both. And that's what they would call a technical artist. And a technical artist is somebody who understands both the programming side and the aesthetic side and the creation side. They know how to optimize art assets. They know how to rig. They know how to code, write shaders. They know how to write tools for artists to use within Maya or within another program. You know, within Maya especially, they're going to be using Mel scripts or Python, which is quite convenient actually because Python's fairly easy to catch up on. So they are a fairly balanced individual, um, and you can tap into that. It's a field that is, there aren't many technical artists within the field. However, there are, that means that there isn't a lot of competition as well, which is kind of nice. But there are few jobs as a result, unfortunately. But it most definitely is good to have something like that under your tool belt because, I mean, you might as well be a Renaissance human. Why not, right? We are in an age of digital renaissance, and take advantage of it. Back to Maya shelves. So what you see here are shelves. And I mean, we've already briefly gone over shelves, but what these do, essentially, it's just a bunch of tools that are commonly used or are commonly found in the menus. Quick, easy way to get to them. You can create your own shelf though, which is lovely. If you click on this gear here, you can do new shelf, and you can name that shelf whatever you'd like. Jakey Boy shelf. There's the Jakey Boy shelf. Now, it's the tabs that you just saw are like, that's basically what comes default with Maya. If we go to my shelf here that I just created, you can add favorite tools to it. Essentially what you do is you just hold Control and Shift and then select the tool you like. So Control Shift. Oh, it did not work. Hold on 1 second. Go back, let's try that again. Nope, that didn't work either. Hold on. There we are. So you have to get it through the menu option here. So like if you're in the menus, you would select the favorite tools that you like. I obviously haven't been using it, so it took me a while to get back into that flow of of uh, of implementing that. But yeah, Shift, Control, create polygon. You know, you can select whatever you like just from here. But yeah, hold Shift and Control, select from there. I thought that you could get them from here. Apparently not. It's always been from here. So that's a good tool for, somebody who, wants all their actions in one place that they usually use, because things do kind of get, you get used to different tools and you prefer different favorite tools, and so that's going to be useful. You can also bring these wherever you want. So let's say I wanted these to be in a different, spot on a different computer. I want to put it in a thumb drive and take it to a different computer to work with. Well, you can do that. We go into, basically, I guess in this case, what we'll do is we'll go to C, go to Documents, you can go to Maya, and we'll go 2019, Prefs, and go to Shelves, Jakey Boy Shelf. And basically, you just cut or copy, whatever you want to do. Obviously copy because you want it on this computer, you want it to remain on this computer. And you just stick it on a thumb drive and pop it in wherever you got, wherever you need it. And then go to the preferences on that computer and just put it in the shelf tab there. And you're good to go. One aspect that I forgot to go over is the actual, when I was talking about pivots, is world space, the difference between world space and object space. If we press W, this is world space. We can change it to object space. There's multiple ways to do that. You can do it in the actual tool editor, the settings themselves. You can do it to you can do it through holding down W and then clicking the middle mouse button, and you can change to, hold on 1 second. Whoops. Excuse me. There we go. Excuse me. It's actually the left mouse button, and you hold down W. I don't know why I messed that one up. And you can go from world to object. So let's say I want it to be object mode. Well, now it's object mode, I can go back to world mode. And this is just a quick way to get to that. I can go back to component. Now, in order to see that, we have to do a little rotation. So we'll get back down here. So let's say we have it here. Notice how the reason why there was no change is because we hadn't changed anything about the rotation. Right now it's in object mode because you can see that based off of how this is going with the object. It's following the axis of the object. W, hold W, left mouse, go to world. See how it bounces up. Now this is in world axis. W, object, back to the object axis. So that's a useful trick, especially if you're trying to like perfectly position something in a spot. It's a beautiful thing. Now, the context-sensitive menus is another useful menu that that one should use, and you get to that via the control. Let's see, no, it would be shift right click actually. I don't use these very often, just because I've gotten in a bad habit right from the start. But I've been trying to use these because I mean, look at this. You can jump right into anything you need essentially. If you need to do a target weld, boom, sculpt, multi-cut, fill hole, pen. It's soften, harden edges, and they go into options and this. You can extrude from here, insert edge loop. It's very, very useful. I mean, it just softened everything back. So check it out. Try to utilize that. It's very useful and very efficient when it comes to creation. Very efficient. The other aspect is of the context sensitive menus. Another menu, I should say, is Control and right click, and you'll get vertices, parameters, UVs. Go to UVs, parameters. Go to faces, parameters, contain faces, etc. Just different menus for all those different aspects of an object or selection. Just quick ways to get to where you gotta be, and that's important, especially during crunch time during a build in the games industry. You want to be efficient, and you want to know how to optimize with low poly, be efficient with how you get to menus, how you create your own tools and a shelf. You have to be organized with layers. You have to know naming conventions for the outliner, exporting and importing properly. All that beautiful, ready for game engine action at your fingertips within Maya. With that, have a lovely day, and please continue to the next videos for our weekly demos. Enjoy.